Welcome to A Veteran Story. I'm Bob Berberian, and with me is a very special guest, Private First Class, Vahan by Berberian. Vi, welcome to A Veteran Story. It's a real pleasure having you as a guest here and to share your story with with everybody who will watch The Veteran Story. I want to start off by saying that you were born March of 1924. Doing my math, you are 94 years young.
That's right.
Yeah, and my compliments. My compliments. Well, your story, let's start off with your parents, Vi. Your mother, your dad, you're first generation, and your mother and dad both went through the genocide of 1915 perpetrated by the Turks.
That's right.
On the Armenians. Your father was a little ahead of it, so he got out before the actual killing.
That's right.
But your mother was not as fortunate. The Turks came through and they killed everybody in her village.
Yeah.
And how did she survive?
Well, what she did was she was laying next to someone that was dead, and she took the blood and rubbed it on their face so they think that she was dead. And when they left, then she got up with the others, and they traveled by foot to get out of there, and they did. My mother survived.
And she was just a young person when this happened.
Yeah.
And like yourself, when I asked you more about the events that took place, you said that your mother was reluctant to talk to your family about this.
Well, she was for a while, because it's hard to take when her whole family was wiped out, and she came from a rich family, and she survived. So she was a great mother, I'll tell you that. That's all I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We never talked too much about it because, I don't know, it's hard for us.
It was painful.
Yeah.
But your mom and dad, they came to this country and married and raised 3 children.
Right.
Your oldest sister, Anne, who's now 96, and your younger brother, Nishan, who is now 89, and of course yourself. But they had a difficult time, as you did. You're products of the real depression that happened in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Do you remember the difficulties of the Depression, Vi?
Oh, I do, because my father had he had a shoemaker shop in Somerville, and he couldn't succeed, and he comes to Arlington and opens up a little meat market, and it was hard with all the competition. But we didn't have much, but we did one thing. We were lucky. We had food on the table, and that's about it.
And the biggest challenge was to what? Just meet the rents? And the biggest challenge was meeting the rents. And,
that's right.
And so growing up in a depression was not...
Yeah. It wasn't like today. We had a pair of shoes, and we wore them until they wore out before we could get another pair. That's how bad things. But we were no different than a lot of other people. Yeah.
Well, anyway, you go to Arlington High School.
I did.
And you graduate with the class of 1941.
That's right.
The year 1941, the bombing of the Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were and what you were doing?
Well, we were playing poker over this fellow's house when we heard about Pearl Harbor, and it was a terrible thing. And so I watched the pictures of Pearl Harbor.
Later.
Yeah.
And did you know what it really meant when Pearl Harbor was attacked and when all this news was coming in? Do you remember what it really meant to you?
Well, I have to tell you this, Bob. I don't want to say what I really think of Pearl Harbor.
No, we will. Okay.
yeah.
Well. Anyway, you are now graduating high school, and you find yourself eventually, like everybody else, entering military service.
That's right.
People of your age, everybody was in uniform, pretty much.
Yeah,
And your first, you went into the Army,
that's right.
and you went down to Claiborne, Louisiana.
Right.
And you trained there for almost a year.
Almost a year, right?
And then off to
England.
England, where you continued to train.
Yeah.
But you did something very unusual. You went to the officers in charge and said, what? That
Well, I was in an engineer outfit pushing a wheelbarrow, and then D-Day came, and I seen all these boys coming back shot up, and I didn't want to go home and say that I was pushing a wheelbarrow, I was lucky. No. So what I did was I went and see my company commander, and I said, sir, I want to transfer. And he said, why, Berberian? Because I said, I want to be in combat. Really? So 2 days later, I was in France, and the next day, I was with the 10th Armored Division. And boy, so the first day I was there, they asked for volunteers to go on patrol. And of course, I raised my hand because I wanted the boys to know me. And 6 of us went out, and we met a German patrol too, but we weren't ready there to fight. And so what we did was we started running back, and they started shooting shells. And I still remember the guy Tanner fell, and a shell went right in between his legs, and he couldn't move. I went over and grabbed him and said, come on, guy, get out of here. And we get out, and the thing was a dud. Mm-hmm. And that's when I became a fatalist and a great believer in God.
Well, when a shell lands not too far from you, it was a artillery shell?
Huh?
It was an artillery shell.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
88. Well, after a while, you knew when they were shooting 88 because there were so many of them that we heard.
Did you know the sound of an 88?
Oh, yes, I knew. We all knew. Yeah. As soon as that was flying, we were right on the ground.
So you could actually see the shell, and it was, I mean, it was just, what, buried into the turf?
Yeah, I did. On Guy Tanner, I did, yeah.
What did he say?
Well, here's the thing. He was from North Carolina, so he was lucky like me that he got through the whole war.
But I mean, that had to be quite an event, you know, shell landing that's supposed to explode into naught.
Yeah.
So you, from there, you move, well, continue what happened after that.
Well, we were fighting we were Patton, and we were fighting along France. And then what happened was the Germans made a big counterattack, and there was an infantry division outside of about 40 miles from Bastogne. And Patton sent, we were not the 10th Armored Division. We were a combat team from the 10th Armored Division because they didn't want the Germans to know the position where Patton was weakened by a combat team going here. And when we hit Bastogne, we were packed bumper to bumper. And what happened was the next morning, the 88 shells were flying all around us. We thought we were going to go 50 miles to give this division armored support. And boy, the shells were falling all over. And we wanted to get back to Bastogne to reassemble, and I was going to take this gas truck out, and my lieutenant landed next to me and says, "Where are you going?" I says, "I'm going to get, they try to get that gas truck out of here." He says, "You are not. You stay right here with me." And we went together, and someone else got the same idea. And I saw him, and I said, "Oh, Lieutenant, look at, there goes the truck." And just about that time, a shell hit the truck, and that I seen that poor boy fall down, all aflame, and I never forgot it. So God was good to me.
So from Bastogne, how long were you there?
I was in Bastogne. I was in Bastogne 5 weeks, and lucky to survive a lot of different occasions. But then one day the 88s were coming, and one of them hit and blew the helmet right off my head. And they all yelled, "Berberian, you all right?" I said, "Oh, I thought that son of a gun had my name on it." But that night I went to bed, and my left eye was killing me. So the next morning I got up and I told my sergeant that I was going to go on sick call, but I'll be right back. When I went, they said, "Go pack a bag. You're going to go to Paris."
Yeah, you lost vision in your eye.
I lost, yeah.
Your left eye.
If I had fell straight instead of on the side, I'd be blind. So I was in France for 5 weeks, and then one day they came in. My eye was killing me every night, and then they told me to look up at the ceiling. He came with another doctor, and they shot a needle with penicillin right in my eye, and boy, I jumped up and ran around. The pain was terrific. But that night, when the nurse came and said, "Berberian, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing a little better." And then the morning came, and when the nurse said, "How you doing?" I said, "I have no pain. Oh, I have no pain in my eye." And so
I want to go back to Bastogne for a minute. Do you remember the intense cold of that 5-week time that you were there?
Oh yeah, it was very, very cold, and the thing that hurt us was the weather was so bad that we didn't have the air. We couldn't get our planes in the sky, and we were this attack was unexpected for us, and so we fought them for 2 days by ourselves, and then the 101st Airborne came and gave us support. And boy, I want to say this for the 101st, they were a fighting bunch of boys, and boy, some of the stories I don't want to go into how brave they were, but we were lucky. And so one day when we were holding a village, a shell went off and blew the helmet right off my head.
And that's when you got your first Purple Heart.
That's when I got my first Purple Heart.
And
the lucky thing was that I fell sideways instead of straight. Otherwise, I would have been blind. And
now, after that, you went, you convalesced in Paris.
Yeah.
And then you went back with your unit.
Yeah.
Where was that then?
And then we went back, and I joined the outfit, and we were going to make a crossing on the Saar River,
Which is in Germany.
Yeah,
Yep.
But what we had to do was we had to get smoke, the drums burned so that there's smoke. And so when we finally got there, I never reached the river when the shell hit, and I got shrapnel all on my right side, and I crawled. They told me to crawl back because I could see the 50 caliber machine gun. I could see the tracer coming, so I crawled all the way back. And when I backed to the hospital, the nurse said, "I never seen such a happy wounded veteran." But oh boy, it was lucky, you know.
So that was your second
That was
Purple
my
Heart.
second, yeah.
Well then, will you still go back and rejoin your unit?
I did but when I went back again, after I was in the hospital about 3 weeks, when I went back, I could tell the skies were clear, our planes were flying, and boy, I felt sorry for the Germans, because the war, as far as I was concerned, was all over. And it wasn't long after that that it was.
But towards the tail end of the war, your unit came across, I guess we'd call it, stolen or hidden German Nazi gold.
This was before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, of
We
course,
have a picture of you with
yeah.
a gold bar, and tell us about that. That's the kind of...
Well, we'll see, whenever we took a town or a city, you couldn't take anything. But by accident, or I don't know how, we happened to find this big load of gold in bricks. And so many that we had, when they called, they wanted us a plane support to transfer it. And they asked me if I'd pick up one of the gold bars and hold it, and they put the picture of me. But I was just one of the outfit that found it, that's all.
Well, so you had pretty much saw a lot of the war in Europe. I mean, you were there.
Yeah.
And now it's so the Germans finally surrender in May, and now they determine who goes back to be discharged by what we call points. How long you were in combat, your Purple Heart, and so forth. So when you tallied your points, you had enough to be discharged. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I was. They gave me. I was supposed to go to France on a vacation, but what I did was, when I found out my sergeant and all the boys I was with during the war were going back, I decided I'd forget the vacation and go back with them. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. You really do have some strong bonds when you're in combat with your fellow soldiers.
Yeah, oh yeah. Especially one, he didn't even have to be in the service. His name was Jones, and because he had sleeping sickness. Boy, we'd be going in a combat, everybody would be shaking, but not him. He'd be sound asleep. But well, it's an experience that they said I was crazy to volunteer for combat, but I never felt sorry for myself. I was so happy that I was happy for one reason, that I'm here in one piece, but I used to pray to God every night to send me home in one piece, or don't send me home, God, and here I am. And I'm a great believer still today in God, and I'm a fatalist.
By fatalist, you mean you saw people around you?
Oh yeah.
And
why him and not me? You know what I mean? And another thing is, I think like this. I went to this dance to meet my wife, and we didn't. And the way things happened. Our fourth child was born with spina bifida, and